Thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Whether you're in need of a website, domain, or online store, make your next move with Squarespace. So in these days, it feels way more common that a film stock would be discontinued rather than announced. So anytime that there's actually something new, it's always pretty exciting. Fairly recently, Lomography came out with a new black and white 35mm film called Berlin Kino 400. Now this is a fairly common thing that actually it's not a new film. So what they've done is take a classic motion picture stock and cut it down to 35mm rolls and kind of repackaged it as this new thing. But thankfully, unlike some of the other repackaged cinema films, it's super easy to handle and process because you use the regular black and white chemicals. There's a nice little text about how this particular film really kind of shaped modern cinema in the 60s, and then about how this will have its effect on your photos. Now I'm not too sure whether that's actually the case, but I guess we'll see whether this film can actually make you have this so-called cinematic look. So I actually had 2 rolls of it, and I decided to put it through 2 pretty different cameras. So I put 1 roll through my Leica and 1 roll through the Budweiser camera. Unfortunately, because I've been pretty busy over the last few weeks, all of these photos were kind of extremely sporadic and random moments, and it wasn't something where I was kind of been able to film much of the behind the scenes. So I thought instead what we'll do is kind of just talk through everything and kind of laid back chat about these photos and how I feel about them. So first up, here's the photos from my Leica. So for all of these, I set the meter on my camera to 320 ISO instead of 400, just to give it that tiny little edge of overexposure, just so I knew that I wouldn't kind of lose too much in the shadows. And I think this is something that I do with most films, whether it's just a little bit like this or a full stop. But yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning. So the first few photos are from the area which I grew up in, just whilst out walking the dog. Just kind of regular suburban scenes. And the first thing which immediately jumps out to me when looking at the scans is that there's something really pleasing about the contrast, and I guess it's kind of smoothness. There's a really nice gradual kind of difference between the tones. I guess it's because it's so flat, but it does feel like everything kind of fades between each other really nicely. It's very grey, you know, it's not particularly black and white. Well, it is, of course, but you know what I mean? It's just like grey. It's also incredibly clean. It just has a really nice feel to it. I've noticed that in the past I've been quite quick to call kind of bad looking black and white film as dreamlike. And for some reason, I want to say again about this, I don't know what it is, it just has this kind of softness that it has a really cool look to me, and I'm not quite sure how to vocalize that. It's kind of a perfect equilibrium between soft and sharp. I'm just really into it. Then there's some photos from Ireland at a really amazing location, which was this beach, which was also like connected to a woodland. I've never been anywhere like this. It was like walking through a movie set, and just this scenery was amazing. It was all super surreal, and there's this really kind of overcast light, but somehow it still looks amazing in the photos. So there's this really interesting thing going on where dirt where the forest is gets eroded by the beach, and the trees end up falling like a landslide kind of thing onto the beach, and then people come and cut down the wood for fire and stuff like that, and it's kind of left with these weird shapes and carcasses of just like creatures of roots and wood. It's just really strange. I don't know how to describe it, but it was just super surreal. I think the photos from here also have a really nice look to them, and who knows, maybe I got bonus points for using a cinema film in somewhere that feels like a cinematic location. Maybe that's why they came out so nice, but I don't know, I think this was just pretty cool. And then there's the Budweiser camera. Now, most of these photos aren't anything special. I take this camera out when I'm going out with my friends and just take funny photos just to kind of document what's going on. And it all came out actually visually pretty different. And I'm guessing this is because the camera only has 1 shutter speed and aperture, and it probably got more underexposed than the roll through my Leica, which resulted in this kind of way more punchy, contrasty look with much deeper blacks. And I think this worked really amazingly in the photos where I used the flash on the camera. They actually came out like perfect. I would not do anything to these photos. This is how I would like my black and white flash photography to look. I think it really nailed it. So these are the photos which I took with Berlin. Let me know what you think of the film. Have you tried it? Do you like these photos? Do you want to try it now? I think personally, they came out really great. And I think particularly the Leica photos kind of fit in with my ideology of black and white. To me, I'd like to have kind of the most blank canvas when I'm shooting black and white. I want this neutral exposure, which is quite flat, so that I can decide later whether I want to add more contrast or not. Whether that's through using a filter on the lens, through the scan, or through printing. I think for me, it did all those things. It was pretty much perfect, and I'd definitely shoot it again. As to whether or not it made my photos look more cinematic, or whether the kind of history behind this film played an impact on me, I'm not too sure, but I still liked the results. So finally, I'd like to thank Squarespace again for sponsoring this video. If you're looking to build a website, or maybe it's a blog, a store, somewhere to show your photography, you can do all of this with Squarespace. It's super easy to use, and you don't need any prior experience of building websites to get a really professional looking site. It's all super customizable and looks really clean. And what's great is you can get 10% off if you use the code negativefeedback. So you've really got no excuse. So that's this video. You got a lot to look forward to. There's a few in conversations that have been shot and are ready to be edited. And also there's a video that I'm working on about the exhibition, which is currently on. And also in 2 days, I think, we're going to Italy to film a video about how photo books are made. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Stay tuned.